Hello boys and girls, Bill here, that owl guy. I want to do another quick video for y'all, sort of a question and answer for some questions I've gotten about not just the owls and owl boxes but also the bat boxes, and I didn't have a lot of questions, so I figured I'd just put all in one video. So let's start with the owl questions. Right now a lot of our owls are fledging. So I've had a lot of customers call me wanting to know kind of what the procedure is, what they go through, what the behavior is. So typically when the owls fledge, they're going to get up in that hole, okay, and they're going to sit there for a while, and then at some point they're going to jump out of the hole and either jump to a branch in the tree if there's one nearby, or they may just go out and flop down to the ground. Okay, they can't fly yet. Okay, so they're going to get on the ground, and there may be 2-3 of them. They'll all hit the ground. They're going to try and stay together. At that point, you've got a little personal responsibility on your hands. If they're in your yard and you've got pets, you need to control your pets. Okay, that's just the bottom line. So if your owl box is in the backyard, you need to walk your dog in the front yard. Okay. Now they're going to be on the ground for about a week while they develop their flight wings. They've got all their feathers, but they're not strong enough to fly. They can fly for 30, 40, 50, 60 feet maybe, but that's about it. Okay. After about a week, they're going to be able to keep up with their parents. Now that whole time, their parents are going to be guarding them and still feeding them. Okay, and they're going to stay together as best they can as a family unit. So you may find them in your bushes, you may find them on a windowsill gathered up, or up in a low branch tree. You'll find that family unit on there. Okay, and the parents are going to continue to guard them and feed them, and they continue that process for about 8 weeks. Okay, now after the first week, like I said, they can fly and they can keep up with their parents. And they're going to go out and they're going to explore, and the parents are going to start teaching them to hunt. But they're going to stay close by that roost. So once they start flying, expect for them to all show back up at your owl house and frequent it for a while. So after about 8 weeks, maybe 10 weeks, they're old enough, they can go out on their own and forage on their own. But with the screech owls, and this video is basically about screech owls, their territory, they're not going to get more than about a mile, maybe a mile and a half from where they were birthed. Okay, so they got a small territory. So what you want to think about, if you get a nesting pair, as soon as you get a nesting pair, if your property is big enough, you want to think about putting another owl house up somewhere on that property. Typically I tell people to put them one in the front of the house, one in the back of the house. Okay, if you got a big backyard, as long as you got 30, 40, 50 foot separation, you can put 2 owl houses out there. So you stand a better chance of getting those young ones to stay in your area. Okay, all right, so enough of that. I had a customer ask me, how long do these owls live? Typically with animals, the smaller they are, the shorter their lifespans. Not really true with owls. A horned owl in the wild is going to live maybe 8 to 10 years. Okay, in captivity they'll live up to 15 or 20 years because they're not going through the daily rigors of just trying to survive. Screech owls are a little strange. Although they're small, I mean, they're really diminutive little creatures. Their average lifespan is about 6 to 8 years in the wild, and they can live up to 12 or 14 years in captivity. Having said that, if you look at barn owls, you know, their life expectancy, and barn owls are a pretty good size owl, they're a medium size owl, their life expectancy is about 4 or 5 years, and it's just because of their lifestyle. They suffer an extremely high attrition rate after fledging, and then the adults, a lot of times they just starve out. They have a hard time hunting. But that's just kind of the way owls are. They're all a little different. Also, having said that about the barn owls, I mentioned the screech owls don't generally go much farther than a mile and a half from where they were born. The barn owls, they may travel a couple hundred miles to find new territory once they fledge and they're on their own. So they're a bit of a strange animal in the owl kingdom as far as owls go. All right. So, I got a question about bats and the bat boxes too. One question was, I think we've gone over this before, which way do I need to face my bat box? It doesn't really matter. Here's the deal. These boxes have got to stay warm, okay? And you want to think of it in terms of about how your attic is on a summer day. So, 95, 100, 105 degrees is not too hot. Here in Texas, I place my boxes facing east to catch the sun as it comes up and warms the box up, and then I depend on the ambient temperature during the summertime, which is going to be around 95 or 100 degrees, just to keep the box warm. So that's how you're going to handle that. Okay. And I had a customer ask me about bat attractants. So here's the deal on bat attractants. They're sort of like snake oil. There's no scientific evidence that bat attractants work. All right. With that said, there's a lot that are available, and if you talk to someone who's used them and they've gotten bats in their boxes, they're gonna just live by it. I mean, they're gonna, that's it. That's the way it is. But there's no scientific evidence that bat attractants work. Little bottle, you can get them on Amazon. It's about $20-30 for a little bottle, spray bottle of it, and there's 3 different kinds. They have some that are ammonia based, which means they're trying to mimic bat urine smell. Okay. Then there are some that are pheromone based, so they're mimicking the pheromones that the bats have. And then the third one is they're based on the guano, so they'll take the guano and actually grind it up and liquefy it and put that in a spray can, and then that's supposed to work. But like I said, there's no scientific evidence that it works. You talk to somebody who's done it, man, they live by it. Like I said, probably buyer beware. I think it's kind of like snake oil, but it can't hurt to do it. You can't do anything wrong by doing it. I just can't guarantee you any success with that. And I think that's probably going to be it for this episode. This was just a quickie. Can't think of anything else. Oh, one other question. I had a couple customers ask me. They said they had gone on Amazon. They were looking at bat boxes, and they noticed that the bat boxes on Amazon were a little less expensive than mine. Well, you got to compare apples to apples. If you go on there, most of them are smaller. Most of them are tiny, to be honest with you, and hardly any of them have a predator guard or a landing perch. Okay, so just make sure when you guys are buying stuff that you're comparing apples to apples. They all work. It's just a matter of getting one and getting it up. I did have a customer ask me what would cause me to fail to have an owl house. Okay, so I'm going to tell you my experience here. About 5% of the customer, we put about 600 of these up in the last 2.5 years. About 5% of the customers who don't have owls is just by sheer dumb luck. They just don't have owls. They haven't got an owl. I've got one customer, he's had his box up for a year, no owls. I put a box up at his next door neighbor's house, 50 feet away from his box, on the same street, on the same side of the street, and in 2 weeks she had an owl. So there's no rhyme or reason as far as that goes. But I will tell you this much: if you are impatient and you don't know how to listen, then you are going to fail. And what I mean by that is, once you put your box up, Leave the bloody box alone. Leave it where it's at. Don't go moving it. Okay? I get a lot of people that call me up 3 months in, and they're like, well, I want to move my box. I want to put my box on the other side of the tree. I want to do this. I want to do that. When you do that, you're just starting over. All you're doing is starting over. And honest to God, here's the crazy thing. Most of these people are calling me during the nesting season to move their box. So they're asking to fail. So if you're impatient, you're type A personality, whatever, you may not be a good candidate for an owl box. Because it's been my experience that those people just don't know how to listen. Other than that, most of our boxes have gotten owls. One thing we did notice this year, and I've had several of my customers tell me this, and realize that these boxes have been up in our areas for about 2.5 years now. They've physically noticed more screech owls in the evenings around their house. So that just tells me that we're getting more and more nesting pairs, and we're getting a higher survival rate, which goes back to, if you get a nesting pair, go ahead and get another box up. And I've had several, probably a dozen or more customers this year tell me, man, Bill, we're seeing owls all over the place. We never saw them before. And I'm attributing that to us having all these boxes up in a pretty tight area. We've got about 600 boxes up between Plano, Frisco, Carrollton, Dallas, and Farmers Branch. So that's a pretty big area, but you got to realize they're highly developed areas. So we've knocked down all the trees, so the birds don't have anywhere to roost. Now they got places to roost, so the attrition rate is lower. I think that is going to be it today, guys. Can't think of anything else. If you all have any more questions on these bats or the owls, feel free to text me. I'll answer them. I'll put them all together and do another quickie video. But y'all have a great one. I'm going to take these over to a customer right now. He's actually buying all 4 of these. So I'm going to take these over to a customer right now and get them up. See you guys. Have a great one. Okay, so hang on a minute. We're not quite done yet, as usual. Couple more questions. With the bats, what's the best time of the year to put my bat box up? Just like the owl boxes, any time of the year. Just realize that the bats hibernate. So if you put the box up in the wintertime, don't expect any bats anytime soon. But it's a good idea to get it up then. That way the box is established. Once they come out of hibernation and they start looking for new roosts, then you're going to find your bats a little earlier. Did have a question on owls, the screech owls, if they attack these bats or if they eat the bats. The answer to that question is, yeah. The owls are opportunistic, so they're not really gonna chase the bats down. They're going to be concerned about energy conservation. But if a bat is flying in and lights on the side of a tree near his roost, like there might be a crack in the tree, and an owl is nearby and sees him do that while that bat's not on the wing, they'll grab him. Okay, but typically the owls won't get them in flight, just because it's so much effort. And like I said, the owls are they're like all other birds. They practice energy conservation with the way they fly and hunt. If you've ever noticed watching hawks and eagles and vultures and things like that, they'll just soar on thermals. They're not wasting any energy at all. And then these smaller bats, the smaller owls, they'll perch on a tree like 8 or 10 feet up in a tree, and they'll dive and use gravity to go to the next perch, and they'll dive, go to the next perch. So they practice energy conservation. Having said that, one thing, this is a little off subject, if you ever go out to a lake in early spring, late summer, when the waterfowl are migrating, you may see huge numbers of waterfowl sitting in an area, in a quiet area of the lake, and then you'll see some idiot come just blow through them, having fun. He'll just blow through them with his boat, and they generally won't hit any of the animals or any of the birds. But when you do that, you've basically written the death sentence for probably half those birds, because those birds are in the middle of migration. They don't have any energy reserves, and you've just used up their energy reserves by making them try again into flight and being in a panic mode. So that's one reason why you'll see guys get tickets for that from the game warden. But that's just an animal cruelty ticket. But typically they've written a death sentence for those birds. So if you think you're being smart running through a bunch of birds with a jet ski or a boat, you're an idiot. All right. I think that's probably it. Oh yeah, here's one for you. I had to look this one up. I had somebody ask me, what do you call a group of bats? You know, I've always called them just a colony of bats, so I never really gave it much thought. But I looked it up, and a group of bats is called a cauldron of bats. A cauldron of bats. That makes you think about the witches. Alright guys, I think that's probably going to be it today. Y'all have a great one. Like I said, subscribe. I'll be doing more of these, and just as I get a collection of questions up, you know, I'll post another video. Thanks guys. Bye.